Well, our first conversation this morning is, you had a sneak peek earlier, and it's about not just voter education, but then voter participation. And it begins with registration and collection of PVCs as and when due. How far so far with that? And a number of other concerns that have been raised by INEC over time. Festus Okoye joins us this morning. He is National Commissioner with INEC and Chairman, Information and Voter Education Committee of INEC. He joins us from Osun State. Thanks for joining us this morning, Mr. Okoye. First of all, the questions that INEC will probably have right now is around the collection of the PVCs. That seems to be the major concern for INEC now, beyond the Osun elections, which we'll get to. What are those concerns that INEC has that needs to be addressed, especially by Nigerians?
Well, the first concern relates to the backlog of PVCs that are lying down in our local government offices. These are the PVCs that we are printed before the 2019 general election. The owners of some of those PVCs are yet to show up to collect those PVCs. So we are calling on those who registered before the 2019 general election to turn up in our local government offices and collect their PVCs, because we have a backlog of PVCs that have not been collected. Secondly, we do not want people to collect any PVC by proxy. So those who registered during the first and second quarter of the registration exercise should go and collect their PVCs because their PVCs are ready. They cannot send someone else to go and collect the PVCs for them because the law does not permit the commission to release those PVCs by proxy. If you made efforts to register, you should also make efforts to go and collect your PVC. So the PVCs for those who registered during the first quarter of registration and the second quarter of registration is there in our local government offices. But for those who registered during the third quarter and those who are registering now, the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission has made it very clear that the commission will get the PVCs of these classes of people ready by October this year.
Perhaps it would be good for us to have some figures. The INEC rec in Lagos says there are over 1 million of those cards uncollected so far. Is that the same scenario across the nation?
No, there are some differentials. You know, the total number of registered voters in each state differs. There are states that have a low voter registration in terms of their population. States like Kano and states like Lagos have a high population, and the number of registered voters in those two states are very high, or compared to the number of registered voters in places like Ekiti and places like Bayelsa and the rest of the states. So there's a differential. So it's not the same figure. But I can assure you that people are now coming over to come and collect their PVCs. But the rate of collection of the new PVCs for those who registered during the first and second quarter has been very, very high. But the rate of collection of the old PVCs remains very low. And that's why we are still calling on people who registered during that particular period to go and collect their PVCs rather than going to any of our offices and registration areas to go and register afresh. Because if you have registered before, especially before the 2019 general election, the implication is that we already have your data in our database. And if you have not collected your PVC and you attempt to register again during this particular period, the commission will invalidate your second registration and still leave that first registration valid. So it is much better for these classes of people to go and collect their PVCs rather than attempting to do a fresh registration.
So these ones that were registered before, that were printed before 2019 elections, INEC has checked and saw that these ones didn't have any such thing as double registration. They're all valid and they're waiting to be collected. Is that right?
Well, those ones are valid. As at the time those ones were printed, the commission was using not using the beavers and used the AFIS, that is automated finger identification system for purposes of checking. So it was only the fingerprints that we are checking. But for this particular new registration, those who are registering now, we are using what we call the ABIS, which is the automated biometric identification system. This one checks not only the fingerprints, but also checks the facials of the individual. So even if you registered in Bayelsa and then you head to Lagos, or you head to Imo, or you head to Kano, and you register again, the ABIS will fish you out and then show that you're a double or multiple registrant.
So does that then mean that those ones that have been printed before 2019, if they pick them up, they can still be used for elections if they haven't registered again?
Definitely, they can still be used for election if they are not registered again. Because as of now, the data of all the registered voters is domiciled in the BVAS. So what we normally do is that when a voter gets to the polling unit on election day, the presiding officer or the assistant presiding officer uses the last 6 digits of the VIN number to call up the voters' data from the BVAS. So our PVCs do not expire; they are valid for all times, and even if you registered in 2011 or 2015, you can use it for purposes of voting. It does not expire, and it is very valid.
You know, part of the question too that many wonder is, why will people take the pains and go through all of that to register and then not come out to pick up the PVCs when they are ready? So has INEC done some sort of introspection? I know that during the Anambra election, some PVCs were printed almost close to the time, and people couldn't print it, couldn't pick them up. And they, I think INEC also said, well, look, we're trying to catch up with the time. So has INEC looked inwards to see why aren't they picking it? Are we printing it earlier than we used to in order to make it easier? And then what about the points of picking up these PVCs? Have you looked at all of those to see how you can correct any lapses if there are any?
The Commission has decentralized the points of collection, and some of our registration officers, when they are going for the registration of new voters during this CVR, they also carry the PVCs for those who registered during the first and second quarter to the various registration areas on a rotational basis. And we are interfacing with traditional rulers, religious leaders, and other community leaders to sensitize people to the fact that their PVCs are ready for collection. One of the things we are also going to do, the moment the PVCs for those who registered during the third and fourth quarter is ready, the Commission will send bulk SMS to the registrants and also use their email addresses to reach them, informing them that their PVCs are ready. And we're also going to make sure that we involve all the critical stakeholders when the distribution process is ready, especially civil society groups and organizations who have also been helping in sensitization, and also the influencers that the Commission has engaged in conjunction with the EU. And so we are going to make sure that we reach every person we can reach. But one of the things we will not agree to do is to release anybody's PVC to somebody else. If you make efforts to register, you should also make efforts to go and come and collect your PVC and then show up on election day. But we like the new energy that has been shown, especially by the youth of this country, in coming out to come and register. And we also hope that this energy will be translated into their showing up on election day. And so we keep on doing our best to make sure that we decentralize the collection of PVC to make it accessible and available to those who have registered.
In terms of decentralization, you know, the centers for collection, in Lagos, over 1 million uncollected old PVCs is quite a number. And, you know, part of the complaints, you know, by the electorates is that, you know, the centers are always, you know, flooded with people who want to collect PVCs, and they wait hours and they have other things to do. Is INEC also increasing the number of personnel that would, you know, service this process such that it is seamless and faster?
Yes, we've increased the two categories of personnel. We've increased the personnel that are now in charge of registration in terms of the CVR. We have also increased the number of machines in states where we have a surge. We have also increased the number of hours available for registration of these categories of persons. Now, for those who are collecting the new PVCs, there are different officers and or staff of the Commission that are giving out these PVCs and also making sure sure that people do not collect by proxy. But for the old PVCs that have been that arose from the 2019 general elections, those PVCs are in our local government offices, waiting for people to show up and collect their PVCs. And so any person who registered before the 2019 general election who has not collected his or her PVC can access any of our local government offices where this registration took place and collect it. But for the new PVCs, we are moving around the registration areas on a rotational basis and also making sure that people show up to collect their PVCs.
When you say your local, the INEC local government office, kindly be clear, is it the local government area council or there is a specific place that INEC has its own offices in the local government areas?
Yes, the Independent National Electoral Commission has offices in the 774 local government areas of Nigeria. So people who registered in those local governments prior to 2019 can go to those local governments and collect their PVCs. Sometimes some of our officers who are also doing this registration also go along with the PVCs of both the old PVCs and the new ones to the various registration areas on a rotational basis, and also trying to get people to collect these PVCs. So we have offices in the 774 local government areas of the country, and people know where these offices are located.
Perhaps that's the assumption. The assumption that people know, Mr. Okoye. Perhaps that's the assumption. I just wanted to clear it. How do people, just for those who do not know where INEC offices are, as you said, they are old cards, so some people may have lost sight. How do people find out where the INEC local government, INEC office in their local government is?
That's exactly one of the things we are doing. The resident electoral commissioners in the various states are engaged in sensitization program to sensitize people relating to where the registration centers are and where the our local government offices are. We also have an electoral officer in each local government of the federation. These electoral officers are also interfacing with traditional rulers, with religious leaders, with community leaders, with civil society groups and organizations, sensitizing people. And actually, they have a timetable, a rotational timetable on when the CVR will be in each electoral ward, or what we call wards or registration area. So it is at that local level that this sensitization is taking place. So the electoral officers and the resident electoral commissioners have mapped out an elaborate program of enlightenment and sensitization relating to where our offices are and relating to where the registration process is taking place.
National Commissioner, what's the update on those areas, particularly in the southeast, where the CVR was suspended due to security concerns, and especially in terms of the voter cards that were destroyed? What's the Commission doing to get a replacement, for those whose voter cards may have been destroyed in the crisis in the southeast?
Well, we've harvested the VIN number of all the cars that were destroyed, and the Commission has already reprinted all the cars that were destroyed during that particular process. Now, the CVR is going on well in all the states of the Southeast. We've made special provision for additional IVET machines, thermal printers and fingerprint scanners for the states in the Southeast, especially where we couldn't register on account of security challenges. There are still a few local governments where we are not carrying out the registration at the moment. A special arrangement has been made for people from those areas to register in different places. I know as a fact that there's a particular registration center that has been created for people from Njaba local government in Imo State, and then people from Osu local government and other local governments where we are not carrying out registration have centers created for them. But in the next few days, the Commission may likely review the security situation in some of these local governments and make a determination on whether it is time for us to resume registration there, especially if some of the security challenges can be dealt with, and if if adequate security can be provided for the registrants and our staff who are engaged in registration. But as of now, no decision has been taken. But I can assure you that we are going to look into it and then see whether there are some additional measures we can take to get those people to come and register.
The report released by the Commission over the weekend also places Lagos as 5th on the list of states in terms of new registration. Can you give us a sense of what it's like? You know, who are which other states are on the top 4, and what is responsible for this? You know, perhaps it can be replicated for those states where people are really coming out to register.
I don't have the statistics of it, but I can assure you that the figure for registration keeps on jumping up from one state to the other. As we are aware, some states have declared 1 week public holiday to get their people to go and register. Some states have declared public holiday for 1 day. Some states are taking extraordinary measures to get people to come and register. And because states are taking extraordinary measures, the Commission is also upping its game in terms of making sure that we deploy additional machines. For instance, in Kano State, I know that because of the large number of people turning up to come and register, the Resident Electoral Commissioner has decided to create additional centers at the Sani Abacha Indoor Sports Stadium to provide bigger space for people to relax when they come to register, and also to provide over 30 to 50 machines for people to register. So this is what is going on in all the states of the Federation. So people are turning up to come and register, and we assure those who are turning up that the Commission will do whatever it takes and do whatever is necessary to make sure that their registration is seamless, and that they don't go through so much pain in trying to register.
Well, Mr. Okoye, you spoke about double registration the other time, and one of your officials over the weekend in Lagos, talked about prosecution of those who register twice. That definitely is something that INEC has been speaking about, but the prosecution end, if you want to speak to it, as well as other infractions in the process that people need to be aware of so that they are not found in contravention of the law.
The Commission has made it very clear that this CVR, the one we are engaged in now, is not a fresh registration. This CVR is for those who have never registered before, and it is also for those who have turned 18. These are the two classes of people that are qualified to register during this CVR. Those who have moved from one state to the other, or have moved from one local government to the other, or have moved from one registration area to the other, do not need to register afresh. The only thing they need to do is to transfer their registration from one state to the other, from one local government to the other, and from one registration area to the other. And then a new PVC will be printed for them, and then their old PVC will be cancelled. Those whose PVCs have been defaced, those who have lost their PVCs, or those who have one challenge or the other with their PVCs, do not need to register afresh. The only thing they need to do is to go and complain, either to our registration officers physically, or they can go online into our registration portal and fill the necessary forms, and then at the end of the day, a new PVC will be printed for them. Those whose names have been misspelled, or those whose dates of birth are not correct, can also go online and rectify that, or visit our registration officers at the local government level or at the registration area level, and also complain, and the necessary corrections will be made, and the new PVC will be printed for them. If they attempt to register again, the implication is that we will leave their old PVCs that has been lost valid, and then cancel their new registration because it's in violation of the law. But the Commission is being slightly liberal in terms of the people who are engaged in double and multiple registration, because some of them are doing it out of ignorance, and some of them are doing it due to either misinformation or disinformation relating to the status of the PVC. There has been some information that went viral to the effect that our PVCs expire. Our PVCs do not expire, and this is what propels some people to rush to go and register afresh. But for those who attempt to hawk our PVCs, for those who attempt to collect PVCs by proxy, the moment the commission is satisfied that a prima facie case has been established against some of these people, we are definitely going to proceed against them. For instance, in Osun State, there were some staff of the commission and some core members who were in charge of PVC distribution, who were holding those PVCs and trying to divert those PVCs. We are definitely going to prosecute them the moment the security agencies complete their investigation. But I want to assure the Nigerian people that all those who are trying to hawk PVCs or hawk PVCs, that those PVCs will be useless to them, because the data of each registered voter is domiciled in the beavers for each polling unit. And so the moment you get to the polling unit, even if you have the card, the beavers must read their fingerprints or must read their facials before you can vote. And so if you have 100 PVCs at your disposal, the only thing you can only do is that you are engaged in voter suppression. In other words, those who have those PVCs will not vote. But in terms of trying to use the PVCs for purposes of voting, it's next to impossibility. So I think it's an exercise in futility.
So does that mean that an INEC ad hoc official cannot bypass the system if somebody who has warehoused the PVC shows up with one of those warehouse PVCs? No official can bypass the process for whoever.
You cannot bypass the process, and that is why we have polling agents or party agents at all the polling units. We have domestic and international observers. We have security agencies, and we have 4 officials at the level of the polling unit, and we also have the voters themselves at the level of the polling unit. And so there's no way you can bypass the beavers and then get somebody to vote. Moreover, you can only use a permanent voter's card in the polling unit where the person is registered and where the person's name is domiciled. And even at the level of the polling unit, the beavers must either read the fingerprint of the voter or read the facials of the voter. If the beavers cannot read any of these ones, the implication is that the person is engaged in identity theft, and the person will either be politely asked to leave the polling unit or get arrested.
About still picking up the PVC. So what about those who have registered, they've not picked up the PVC, assuming they were part of those pre-2019 group, and then they have changed location? Can they go to their current location and say, look, I've not picked up my PVC, can I transfer and get myself picked up in the new area where they are?
Yeah, definitely, they can. If they have registered before, for instance, if somebody registered in Kwara State and the person has not picked up his or her PVC, the implication is that the person's data is still in our database. So if the person goes online, for instance, and then there's what we call a PVC locator, the person can locate whether his or her PVC has already been printed or has not been printed. If the person's PVC has been printed and the person does transfer, the implication is that we are going to cancel the old PVC, which has not been collected, which is still domiciled with the Independent National Electoral Commission, and then we print a new PVC for the person. And so the person doesn't need, just because you have not picked up the PVC itself does not mean that we do not have your data. If you attempt to register again, we will invalidate your new registration because you already registered. So what you need to do is just to carry out transfer, and we print a new PVC for you.
Mr. Okoye, how does this PVC locator work, and who can use it?
Anybody who is computer literate can use it. There are 7 services in our online portal. Out of those 7 services, we only suspended 1 service. That is pre-registration for new registrants. But every other service within that particular platform is still ongoing and is still valid. So if you want to do your transfer, you can just go online and do your transfer. You don't need to go to any of our local government offices to do it physically. If your PVC is blocked or if your PVC is damaged, you can also go online and make the necessary key in the necessary information, and it will still be valid. If you also want to locate your PVC, there's a PVC locator in that particular platform. You can go and click, and then you can locate where your PVC is and whether your PVC has been printed or has not been printed. So it's just on that particular platform, and anybody can just go to the platform and use those services.
All right. I know that you're making plans for Osun at the moment. Some of the perhaps drawbacks or hiccups for the Ekiti elections, you expected to plug those holes, improve for this particular election coming up in Osun State. One of those key areas was the positioning of the ballot. You know, we talked about vote buying, how certain people seem to have circumvented all of that. What is going to be the latest decision or plan that INEC has to ensure that anyone who manipulated the system one way or the other wouldn't benefit from it this time?
Presently, the Commission is training supervisory presiding officers, and assistant presiding officers. And it is one of the issues that has been keyed into their training, the issue of the positioning of the cubicles to make sure that we guarantee the secrecy of the vote. Because the secrecy of the vote is at the heart of democracy and the heart of our electoral practice. So we are taking that into consideration. Presently, the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission is in Osun, and he's going to visit some local governments today to assess the state of our readiness. Not only assessing our state of readiness, he's also going to visit some polling units where we are going to do mock accreditation. And so the positioning of some of these cubicles will also be assessed. But the challenge is that some of our polling units are located in Doku. Some of them are located in the corridors of schools. We've had situations in the past where some of the voting cubicles were put inside the classroom, and the ballot boxes were put inside the classroom, and the people said no, they want to see everything as is ongoing. And so people want to compete in secret and vote in the open, because we operate what we call the open secret ballot. So we are going to look into the issue of and the secrecy of the vote. The Commission has held a series of meetings with the security agencies under the auspices of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security. And the issue of vote buying is top on the table. So the security agencies are going to increase their surveillance and also be robust in terms of making sure that people do not go to the various polling units to go and corrupt the electorates, or go and do something that is untoward, or do something that will undermine the electoral process. And so that has been taken into consideration. But you know, Osun is far bigger than Ekiti State. In Osun State, as you know, we have a total of 30 local governments and 332 registration areas. And the number of polling units in Osun State is also more than the number we have in Ekiti, and the number of registered voters is also 2 times as high as we have in Ekiti. So Osun is a bigger template, and we are not leaving any stone unturned in making sure that we do much better than we did in Ekiti.
Just to quickly mention, Mr. Okoye, that I found a CVR live locator on your website. I haven't found the PVC locator yet. Maybe we'll get to that some other time. However, I just want to ask a question quickly around voter apathy. In the Ekiti election, you want to recount to us what the percentage of people who participated versus the number of registered voters in that election? And what is the outlook this time around? Because the concern for voter apathy, low voter turnout, is still very much with us, even despite all of the rise in the number of people voting registering to vote.
Well, if you look at what we have in Osun for the Osun governorship election, which will take place on the 16th day of July 2022, there has been what I can call a surge in terms of PVC collection, especially for those who registered during the first and second quarter, and also those who registered when we decentralized the registration to the various registration areas or wards. As at the last count, over 52%, over 50% of the new voters who registered during this CVR have collected their PVCs. We have slightly around 1.9 million registered voters in Osun State, and out of this number, over 1.3 million have already collected their PVCs. And what is important is the type of mobilization that will enable people to show up on election day. We promise the people that the security agencies will be on ground to make sure that the environment is safe for people to come out. When people are not too sure that the environment will be safe for them to come out, they are not likely going to come out. So we have to assure people that the environment will be safe. We have also assured the people that their votes will count. And when people are sure that their votes will count, there's a tendency that they will come out to come and exercise their democratic franchise. And then there's a new resurgence of interest in our electoral process due to the technological innovations of the Commission, and also due to the what people have seen from the conduct of the Edo, Ondo, and Anambra governorship elections. And so we hope that with the Osun governorship election that will take place just before the 2020 regional election, that there will be people who will show more interest in terms of their participation in the election. We are not yet where we want to be, but I'm sure that with proper mobilization, with enlightenment, and with the new technological innovations and creative approaches the Commission has adopted in this election, that more people will come out and show up on election day.
Mr. Okoye, sorry to take you back to the issue of vote buying. You know, in the just concluded Ekiti election, the concern about the open placement of the ballot box, you know, caused opposition parties who were actually on our program, Sunrise Daily, to say that the Commission was perhaps in cahoots with some of the political parties to encourage vote buying because of the open placement of the ballot box. So in reviewing the strategy for the Osun election, is there a more discreet way that the Commission is perhaps considering to place the ballot box such that, you know, vote buying is discouraged as much as possible?
What we operate is the open secret ballot. You make your thumbprint in secret and you vote in the open. That is what the Commission is operating, and that is the law. Secondly, on election day, you do not see any staff of the Commission near any polling unit. The presiding officer is a core member, and the assistant presiding officer 1, 2, and 3 may likely be core members or students of federal tertiary institutions. If, for instance, in an election we deploy 13,000 ad hoc staff, there is no way the Commission will go in one place and begin to give 13,000 ad hoc staff tips on how to position the ballot box and how to position the cubicle to favor any political party. The Commission is not a political party. The Commission does not have interest in any political party winning election. The interest of the Commission is to make sure that when people get to the polling units, they vote in accordance with their conscience, and then at the end of the day, the votes of the people will be the only determinant of who gets elected in any democratic process. And that's what we do. And so we have trained our presiding officers and assistant presiding officers on what to do.
Mr. Okoye, the cubicle, the voting cubicle provides for some form of privacy, and the bottom part of the voting cubicle is enclosed. Can the ballot box be perhaps, you know, placed at that bottom part of the voting cubicle? So when the voter is done thumbprinting, he or she can just drop you know, the ballot paper inside the ballot box at the bottom of the voting cubicle. That way, no party agent or no intending prospective vote buyer can see how they have voted.
The voters themselves sometimes want to see that ballot box. They want to make sure that nobody goes into that secret compartment, does anything, and then puts in 2 ballots, you know, in the ballot box. For instance, with the new Electoral Act 2022, the issue of overvoting is now measured in relation to the number of accredited voters. So if 100 people are accredited and then you have 101 ballot papers inside the ballot box, it means overvoting. So people do not want a situation where somebody will go and shortchange them just because of the positioning of the ballot box. Sometimes people want to see with their eyes that somebody has voted in secret and has dropped his or her ballot in the open. So there's a limit to which we can hide the ballot box from the people. Sometimes the people want to see with their own eyes what is going on, and there's nothing the commission can do to prevent that, because that is part of the transparency in the electoral process, and that is part of what makes election transparent and open.
All right, let's take some questions as we wind down. We've got this from Tunde, who says the application type was voter record review, and then the application status reads CVR process completed and approved final. But at the top of his form, what he got online is congratulations, next steps. What does this mean? They didn't tell him what he's to do next. Where is he supposed to go?
The next step is for him to go to any of our local government offices to go and complete his biometrics, because we have to capture his fingerprints and also capture his facials. And this one takes less than 5 minutes since he has already completed the process online.
Well, a follow-up to that question is from Sir Olusegun on Twitter, who says, why is it that one is registered online and still can't book an appointment, date, and time? It's been weeks now, he says. It's traumatic, especially for someone who is coming home from diaspora for this.
No, all those who registered online, when the online pre-registration was still valid, we gave them dates when they can go and complete their biometrics. And as you are aware, we are no longer operating the online pre-registration for new registrants. And so nobody could have been given any date for within this particular period. But for every individual who went online and also completed his or her pre-registration, they were given dates when to show up. And even if the dates you were given had elapsed and you didn't show up, if you show up, we will still capture your fingerprints and also capture your facials.
A very quick one. This is an old concern, actually, from a Twitter user from the 21st of June, but it's just as important. He says, "Dear INEC Nigeria, something is not adding up. Borno is ravaged by so much insecurity, as at last year, only 4 local governments had access to mobile network. How did Borno move from 6,328 to 501,347 registered voters online now in the space of 10 months. And this Twitter user is reacting to the map spread of INEC, published by INEC, to show the online voter registration across the state. How do you react to this?
Well, if you are talking in terms of states, in terms of registration, this registration is taking place both physically and also taking place online. The number of registered voters in each state differs. The population of each state differs. So if a state has a population of 10 million and another state has a population of 2 million, definitely there will be differential in terms of the voter registration population and so on. So all the registration figures are subjected to our ABIs to remove double and multiple registrants. And at the end of the day, the Commission will publish the exact figure of completed registrations across all the states of the Federation.
Well, we have to close at this point, Mr. Okoye, but just to let you know that there's quite a lot of counsel from Nigerians for INEC, online. Shegs is saying that INEC should periodically send SMS to persons here to collect their PVCs, indicating their point of collection, 1. And someone else is proposing that there should be a live chat portal from INEC on their website so that at least people can interface. In the meantime, for now, we have to thank you very much for being a part of our conversation this morning. Festus Okoye is National Commissioner with INEC, and he's Chairman, Information and Voter Education Committee for the Commission. Thank you so much for enlightening us this morning.
Thank you so much.